I've got oceanfront real estate out here in Copalis Beach. This is Miles McLaughlin at Wilco Land. What we do is we buy and sell raw vacant land. Our goal and our focus is to focus on these unique and what we like to call epic properties. So in this video, I'm going to break down what the 6 acres is all about. I'm going to talk to you about wetlands, going to talk to you about access, going to talk to you about potential target audience and all that good stuff. So this video will cover a lot of your common questions and FAQs for the 6-acre property of oceanfront real estate out here in Copalis Beach. So starting the video off with a quick disclaimer. This isn't legal advice. This isn't real estate advice. I'm simply sharing my opinion, my thoughts, and my due diligence I've done on the property with you. So let's get started here. Let's break it down. We're seeing some really good photography that we got of the property, right? You can see there's a home on the south side of the property, very nice residence on the south side. Then you've got development on the north side. Our property sits between the two. Right here is State Highway 109. And actually to the south of to the west of the property. So on the oceanfront side of the property, that's the Ocean Shores Highway. You can actually drive along the beach to access this property too from the western side. So when we talk about property access, number one, you can access the property from State Route 109, which is going to be a paved highway. I'll pull up a photo of it here shortly. The other way you can access a property is coming down the Ocean Shores Beach Highway from the ocean side. You'd have to create a bridge, or you can use potentially a bridge. I'll talk to you guys. There's a bunch of bridges up and down this coastline. So I don't know if the state put those in. I don't know the process for developing a bridge, or just landowners have put them in throughout the years. There's floating bridges, there's standalone bridges. I'll talk about that in the video. There's a creek right here, Connor Creek. But like I said, there are floating bridges and bridges that people have installed. I don't know if it's the state or these landowners, and what that process is, if you even need a permit for it at all. Or how that works. I don't know all those details, but I'll talk to you about what I see in satellite imagery. There's quite a few people that have developed these bridges. So I always thought this property would be cool to access it from the ocean side, and creating kind of like a bungalow. This is high ground. So really to access a lot of the high and dry stuff is going to be on this western side of the property. And that's going to create opportunities for potential campsites, potential like places for a yurt or some sort of off-grid cabin, just things like that. People are getting creative with these type of land investments. I'm not going to beat around the bush on this one. There's going to be challenges with wetlands, just like all of Washington, just like a ton of land out there in Washington. There's an example I'm going to show with you, a case study of a property just a few to the south that actually got a reasonable use exemption. So they were able to put gravel in and create a cool campsite with a storage container for campers, RVs. Like I said, storage containers store all their goodies for the beach. So going to pause here on some more satellite imagery. You can see State Route 109 right here. Access this property. Some of these folks have been able to put driveways in. You can see that. Plenty of development. I'll get to more satellite imagery toward a little bit later in the video and talk a little bit more about that. I do have the county GIS pulled up as well. So this gives us some pretty good aerial imagery of the property, right? So I'm going to jump into the meat and potatoes. Who's a target audience of this property? It's going to be somebody that's looking for a potential buy and hold, though this is a really great investment. This is 6 acres in Copalis Beach, Washington. We have this thing priced to sell, and, we're open to offers. We're in the business of moving land fast, right? So number one, potential suitors are, hey, this is a really great investment property. Why do I say investment properties? Because traditional building and getting a driveway into a building site in this property is going to come with challenges, especially during the high watermark season. This property has a lot of bog and wetlands, basically on the eastern side of the lot, which is going to create a potential challenge to put a driveway in to the building area. So from what I understand from talking with a wetland delineation specialist, just some scuttlebutt conversations there, a lady who's worked up and down this area, this is really where your high ground is at in the middle of all these properties. See how everybody's built on this line here? And I'll pull up satellite imagery. So do you see how everybody's developed right in here? Like that. And I've never been to the property, so more development along this line right here. Do you see that? And then obviously it changes down here. This is a whole subdivision. I think it's an HOA. Is it Seaside Estates maybe, or Seaview Estates? But long story short is, what the wetlands specialist is saying is, hey, you might have a challenge putting this driveway in all across the eastern parcel here into your high and dry ground, right? This looks really dry too. You can see all this. So the western property looks really good. And the challenge of potentially building here is this driveway could maybe not be in a bog, or it could be grandfathered in. Maybe the state has more regulations around, bogs and wetlands and putting fill in and all that good stuff. So that's why I'm talking about this alternative access route from the ocean. When we talk about this as a recreational land investment, that oceanside access is going to be pretty cool, right? Put in a floating bridge, right here. That's very possible. Put in a floating bridge, access your property here, build a really badass campsite, build a spot for a yurt, maybe a tiny home, maybe use some lumber off the property and create a little beach bungalow, totally off grid. Like I said, maybe it's your private campsite that's very unique and special. You access it from the ocean side. You get a storage container back there. Maybe you fly in some materials. I've had customers do that, right? So when I talk about this land investment, I'm not saying you can't build. You could build, right? Somebody's going to have to go through the variances, go through the state, the county, get wetland delineations done, get geotech reports. It's going to be a process to develop and build in this property. I have not gone through that process, and I don't plan on going through that process. My goal is to advertise the raw product, is this land. And we have it priced in mind with some of those challenges. And so I want to be clear about that. We're open to offers. We're open to a conversation about how do we get something done? How do we find something that works for both sides? So my biggest, pitches for this property is, number one is if you can get a driveway in, if you can get, the county to give you an exception or a reasonable use exception. And even if they don't allow a driveway back to this building site where you could potentially, develop a home, or down here where you could develop a traditional oceanfront, residence, $1 million home, right? That's what you're thinking. If that's not possible right now, that doesn't mean you won't get an exception or a reasonable use exception for a gravel pad right here. And the reason I say it is because I believe it's this person right here, this property. I got to double check the ownership. Yep. So I'm almost positive. I'll pull up the case study I have, but this property right here that looks very wet right here too and boggy, very similar characteristics as ours. If we look at, satellite imagery, the tree species and things like that, this property looks almost identical to our property. And this property right here, it appears, and I'll pull it up right here. Here's a case study, a reasonable use exception for that property. So basically, and I'll go through this with you quick, reasonable use exception from release of critical area buffer requirements for construction of a driveway access and parking area for camping purposes, right? And so what this owner is proposing is, hey, building is going to be challenging. We're not worried about building. All we want is a gravel pad for camping and for recreational use on our lands. And approval with condition, staff recommendation, approved that request with, a few recommendations or conditions, right? Here's the proposal. You can read that here. I'll zoom in. Requesting relief from conservation buffer requirements. Approval of this RUE, reasonable use exception, will allow construction of a driveway access and parking area for camping purposes and placement of a 200 square foot storage container with required conservation buffer to a category 1 wetland, right? So, I won't dive in too much of it. It's approximately 1,400 square feet of fill and a 200 square foot storage container and construction of a driveway access and parking area. No direct wetland implications are proposed or anticipated, yada, yada. Okay. This was back in 2022. This is the property that they're talking about. Okay. And so you can read through this. It is shared on our website. Just to let you know, I have shared this case study on our website. You can check out this permit here, give you some inspiration for potential use. And so let's see, and they even had this special study done, right? It's going to take advocacy. It's going to take working with the right people. It's going to take time, right? Maybe somebody local is going to have a better shot at getting this done, than somebody from out of state. Like I said, we can think about this as an investment property or think about alternative ways to use 6 acres of oceanfront real estate in Copalis Beach. So again, this goes through all the wetlands. It goes through the conservation area, the flood zone. And then it talks about, I just want to get to the conditions of approval. So, the conclusion here, basically, it allows it, right, with some limitations, an expiration. They're giving them until 2028 to do this. They're saying 5 years is reasonable, yada, yada, yada. Mitigation, construction, best management practices, outdoor lighting. You can read through this. it's talking about, here's some conditions. You can do this, but here's the conditions. I'm not going to go through all that. Everybody's got two eyes and can read watching this video. So again, it's giving you these conditions. The conclusion is they're allowing this with conditions. Like that alone, that is very, very, very valuable and very positive for this property. To see that this property right here got approval for a 1,500 square foot area to put fill in and a driveway and a storage container, that's awesome. That's oceanfront real estate. Now it has tangible use, weekend use. We're step one in the right direction for this property. That's very, very promising for our land right there. To me, there's no reason that shouldn't be approved on ours if somebody else, 600 yards away, 300 yards away, got that same approval with what looks like similar topography and landscape. So when we talk about land use, we have to get creative, especially in the state of Washington when we're dealing with wetlands and high, regulatory systems in place, for conservation purposes and to protect the ecosystem out here. And so number one, target audience is somebody that might want to use a property for RV use, storage containers, some sort of recreational opportunity. You're putting fill in, you're putting a shorter driveway in, you're maybe not making it all the way back here to the high and drier ground, right, to develop. So again, number one, that's potential target audience number one. Number two is, I'm going to put a bridge in, some sort of floating bridge right in front of my property on Connor Creek. And I'm going to, clear some space. There's already space cleared for camping purposes down here, it looks like, but I'm going to have one of the world's coolest campgrounds. Oceanfront real estate, put some sort of storage container in on the property as well, something that doesn't require a permit, store your fishing gear, store your paddle boards, your kayaks, kind of a storage base for all of your, for digging razor clams. Like this is a cool location. I mean, you could potentially pack yurt material in and build a yurt as well. I mean, things that don't require a permit, think camping, think recreational, think unique, creative ways to use a property from the ocean side here as well. So there's two potential angles you could take this property. And the third I talked about was this pure investment opportunity. So, yes, building's going to be challenging. If you have the pockets deep enough and you believe in oceanfront real estate, they're not making any more of it. Technology is going to change. Why can't you build a house on stilts? Why can't, what if this area dries up in 20 years? I don't know, the world is changing, technology is changing, the ability to protect the environment while also putting a driveway in or putting a home in, that's all evolving. As a human species, I guess we're evolving in ways to deal with these type of properties. And so who's to say in 5, 10, 25 years and your kids' generation, even, that the likelihood you can't build something really sweet on this property doesn't exist. The value of 6 acres of oceanfront real estate is only going up, even with some of the challenges that this property presents itself. And so that's something I want to challenge people to think that way about this land investment. It's not always cut and dry. Hey, can you build? Can you not build? Yes or no. There's so many other ways to look at a property and angles to play this. So, lastly, I don't advise doing this, but I guess you could try to pay your neighbors for an easement to get to your building site, to get to a high and dry ground place you can put a septic in and put $1 million cabin in. What's that price tag? Would your neighbors ever do it? I doubt it. I had one of them comment, on one of our marketing things that, hey, we would never allow somebody to use our driveway. That's fine. That property could change ownership in 5 years, and that could change with a different owner. And $250,000 offer to use your driveway might change the thought process, but that's not how we're selling the property. That is another angle a person could take. Obviously, don't go knocking on their doorsteps. If it were that easy, we would have had that access and that easement from them. That isn't an easy route. That's a speculative route. If I were going that route, I'd do it after I purchase a property. I'd get good with my neighbors and try it. Maybe there's a financial incentive to work with them or that, get with them if they ever want to sell their property. Line up, get first in line to buy it from them. That's how you would take that angle. But, that's what we're looking at here on this 6 acre property. I talked about these bridges that people are building over Connors Creek. I think the neighbors have one because, like I said, they did mention me. I don't know if it's a floating bridge or what. I don't see anything there, but I believe one of these neighbors do have a bridge. I don't know the legality of who can access these bridges from the beach, but what I'm seeing here's another bridge. This is clear as day. This is a walking trail down the beach. It looks like there's plenty of people walking this. There's walking trails back here to these other properties, to these people's homes. You can see all these people have like little dunesy walking trails that get down here, and this trail takes them here. It looks like it's pretty commonly used. This to me looks like it's on state land, and I'll pull up the county GIS maps, but it looks like nobody owns this. You can see all my private land ownership lines are in here. So, I don't know, the legality of those bridges, who can use them, when you can use them, what the argument is there. Again, you can drive on this highway here. I think Tidelands Resorts has a bridge too right here. Here's another bridge you can see. This is actually Beachwood Resort, right? So Beachwood Resort has a bridge. I'd assume this is for all their guests. Again, you can hop on the bridge there. So people are putting these bridges in. Here's another one, another bridge. So there's quite a few. This is at Tidelands Campground. Again, I don't know the legality of these bridges. To me, this is on public land. I don't see how you could argue that it's private. I'm sure they put it in for the benefit of the private ownership over here, but Copalis Beach RV Resort, I mean, this is public access for sure. Pedestrian bridge over Connor Creek right here. I mean, here's one that's built. Like I said, I think some of these people use floating bridges over Connor Creek, but this is 100% accessible here at Tidelands Resort. And if I zoom in, that's just to the north of the property. So those are good ways to access that side of the property. So you'd access it over here. You'd walk along the creek. You could access, like I said, Tidelands Resort is almost the best one. Maybe walk along the creek. So like I said, that's an angle you can play with this property. Otherwise, we've got Highway 109 access, and people have been putting driveways in, whether they're grandfathered in, whether they got approval to put fill in. I don't know what the story is. We've got the property priced with all that in mind. So I showed you the reasonable use exemption one of the neighbors got to use a property for recreation. We talked about some reasons why somebody might buy this property. There's only so many opportunities you're going to get to buy 6 acres of oceanfront real estate out here in Copalis Beach and Washington in general. What is the number? What is the value to that to somebody? That's for you and I to have a conversation about. But again, there's not going to be many opportunities at our price point. Yes, I know the property comes with challenges, but you're not going to see these opportunities come about that often, right? And so, if you're interested in something like this, get with me. Give me a call here at 605-250-1256. That's about all I have to share on the property. For those that want to access it, just use the GPS coordinates. My favorite app is using Onyx Maps. All I did was plug in the GPS coordinates from our website. You can access it on 109 right here, or you could take the Ocean Shores Highway. And again, I wanted to touch on that at the end of the video. Yes, it's legal to drive on the beach. It's considered a state highway. It's 25 miles per hour. Follow the rules of driving on the beach. Google it if you don't know. I do have Onyx off-roading pulled up. You can see this Ocean Shores Highway is a 9-mile road. It could be seasonal. I'm not sure what spring, summer, fall, winter is what they're saying here. Check with the regulations. It's 25 miles per hour. Obviously, be careful driving on the beach. Check with the regulations. Make sure it's in season that you can drive on it, all that good stuff. So here's the Ocean Shores Beach Highway. So you can access this highway from a lot of different access points. I think the closest one is the one that we talked about to the south down there. So, get with us if you have questions. We do have other land investments on the website. Again, I think I shared my number with you. If not, click into one of these listings. You'll find my number in there. My name's Miles McLaughlin here at Wilco Land. Happy land hunting out there. If you're interested in other land deals, whether it's Washington State, Idaho, Utah, Montana, Alaska, we're all over the Mountain West and Western United States. Like I said, you can reach us here anytime. Thanks for tuning in.